All right, everybody. This is Ryan with Rigs of Death Metal. My guest today is Dallas Toler-Wade, formerly of Nile, currently of Narcotic Wasteland. Dallas, how you doing today, man?
I'm doing well, man.
Awesome. Going right into it. Something I was super curious about. Which, by the way, personally big fan. Um, since I don't know, probably high school, something like that, and huge fan of your lead playing as well as Carl's. Um, and I love that you've continued the intricate riffing and shredding on with Narcotic Wasteland, and your specific tone of vocals has always just kind of sold me. Um, one one big change up has been from Dean guitars to there was kind of BC Rich and a mixture of other things to now we're seeing a lot of Jacksons. What
hmm
what kind of led you switching from one to the other?
well, they've all been really great guitars. Once I departed Nile, I didn't, I just wasn't really feeling the Deans anymore. The two customs that I had made were kind of specific to that band or job, and it just wasn't really, it just didn't feel as comfortable to me as some of the other stuff I was playing. In the first tours and recordings that I did on the previous two albums, I had a Charvel Starbody that I used for a lot of that, and for the early tours, like the tours for Delirium Tremens. And I also had a VC Rich Ironboard one that I had modified, which surprisingly, the fret wire on that thing was really solid and really level. Um, so those were my two mains during that time. And I had a roommate and a good friend of mine. He's like a Jackson guy, and I got to playing a couple of his Jacksons, and I really, really liked them. Like they have the super jumbo frets. They just really have all the ingredients that I need. And you can also get something that's decent that doesn't totally break the bank too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I ended up buying a whole bunch of Jacksons, and I had a Pro Series. I had a couple of the X Series, and people think I'm crazy, but I ended up selling all those, and I kept my JS models.
I have
But
noticed.
yeah, I like not having paint on the neck. I like a regular natural finish. Whether it's a bolt on or not, I've never really cared too much about that. I know that
Sure.
for some reason or another in the studio when I'm recording, bolt on guitars always win out over neck grooves and set necks. I don't know why,
Hmm.
but that's just how it's always been. Um, and some of those are old BC Riches that I have, that's just like um, a big old chunk of alder and a bolt-on maple neck. There's still some of the winners when I go to actually track something. But yeah, this is the. I'll just show you real quick. This is the model that I'm using right now. It's a JS32T. It's got the standard bridge on it. That's one thing that I've recently gotten away from. I've gotten away from Floyd Rose. I don't use them, and this is just. I just started. I've got to the point where I was breaking strings on them a lot, and this right here is just straight up. And I just don't feel like I'm going to break this when I'm playing.
Sure.
And I do a couple of modifications to these, and of course, you got to put some Duncans in there. I like the JB Jazz set very much. They're kind of like
Classic.
this, yeah, the Swiss Army knife, if you will. They're not the hottest pickup in the world, but they got a great voicing on them. And this neck pickup is like glass, because a lot of the narcotic solos I use the neck pickup. And then, of course, the old tone knob delete. I move the volume knob into tone position and get this out of the way of my hand. And that's always kind of bugged me, but over the years, that's just gotten worse and worse. And yeah, the only other thing is I drilled a hole. I moved this to here.
Okay.
That way, these are not bad. They balance pretty well. But
Mm-hmm.
from the factory, they put that here, and
Gotcha.
that's just weird to me. Um, So, and that's basically the modifications I do to it. And this is the newer one. I have two of these models. Narcotic Wasteland has two primary tunings. One of them is D sharp standard, and the other one's D standard. So we nicknamed these guitars Red Devil and Red Devil 2. This is Red Devil 2, or Red Devil also, we call it. And it's just great, solid guitars, man. The fret wire's decent on them. Of course, these have both been, set up, leveled, all that stuff. And they're great sounding instruments. You don't have to spend a bazillion dollars on a guitar.
Right.
You just don't. And I love the Ferrari red.
That's pretty sharp.
Yeah. I just did a big, deep cleaning on both of those because, I'm pretty corrosive and they got pretty dirty. And there was a lot of really hot, sweaty shows on this last tour, and they were just disgusting.
Gotcha.
Like I literally had to pry the bridge off because there was so much sweat like caked down.
Dude, honestly, that's pretty inspiring for a lot of people to see somebody that's high profile playing, student guitars. I love the JS line. Every time I picked one up in a store, they're killer. You said that's Red Devil 2. Does Red Devil 1 have the JB jazz set as well?
Yep. And the only difference is it's in D standard. And on the D sharp guitars, I use these guys right here, just a standard 10 gauge. I like the sound of these strings, the feel of them, and you can get them anywhere. And then for the D standard, I just bump it up 1 gauge, just so I can keep the tension kind of consistent between the two tunings. And like I said, you can get these just about anywhere.
Sure. About kind of about the same gauge tuning ratio I kind of tend to stick with as well. But I've actually been looking at a couple of the JS King V's to try to do kind of the same thing. Maybe like again, delete the tone knob and make room for a battery and put like EMGs in it or something.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing that a lot of people don't necessarily realize is the pickup in your guitar. That's like 90% or 95% of the tone. Like, it's good to have decent woods. I know that's pretty much, Jackson has used poplar for their bodies for many, 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 many years. And I'm sure there's, differences, but the real difference is the pickups and the scale length of the guitar. That's what really makes the most difference. Yeah. Of course, the wood's going to make a difference, but not as much as people think. Especially if you go full active with an EMG. That guitar is no longer a Jackson; it is now an EMG.
Yeah. But man, it sounds good though.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people love them. I never could. The actives never felt right to me. One of the X Series V's that I got, it was like green bevels. It was a Rhodes V, and I bought it used, but it came with the Duncan blackouts, and I thought they were pretty good. But I don't know. I've just been playing passives for so long. It's just a huge change. My buddy that turned me on to Jackson guitars, he's got a Jackson. It's a Japanese model, but it's a neck through with a maple fingerboard, and I think he's running an 85 in that thing, and it is just perfect. Nice. Just 185 and one knob.
Hell yeah! I have heard of a lot of people switching and putting like an 85 in the bridge and kind of fatten it up a little bit or darken it, whatever.
I don't think it has as much output.
I could see
it gives you more like a thrashy tone, you know what I mean?
Sure. I think in my guitars, I don't have any of the standard 81s in any of mine anymore. I've got a headset and one guitar. I currently got a buddy's that has like the 57, and then I got an 81X and another guitar. And I do have you seen those 24-volt mods that you can put in them?
Never saw the 24-volt. I do know that I'm a big fan of EMG on bass.
Yeah.
And I've seen those with the big soap bars and the 18-volt mod. And it's just, It's nice and rattly and just beefy. You know what I mean? Like,
Oh, they're sick.
yeah, yeah. That's really great.
Um, I don't have one handy, but yeah, those the 24-volt mods really open them up a lot. They sound killer. Way less compression. Seems like they just sound fuller. But
Hmm.
uh, so what else are you running? Tend to be running live with Narcotic Wasteland these days. I've seen some videos where you have like a JCM 900, some PV triple X, and obviously back in the day you were using the JCM 2000s a lot.
Well, back in the day, live with Nile for many, many years, I used a rack setup. I
Mhm.
had two Marshall monoblocks. They're just raw fucking power. And in front of that, I was putting a PV Rockmaster preamp, and I
Okay,
used that for years and years and years. And then finally, because the old Rockmaster, I've had that thing since like I still have it, but it's kind of retired to the studio at this point. I think I got that thing brand new in like '91, something like that. And I've retubed it a couple of times, and it's a great versatile little preamp, especially with that Marshall power behind it. So I used that for many years, and then I bought a well over in Europe we would use rental gear, and a lot of times the Marshall heads weren't serviced or they were just beat. You know what I mean? So I would use the triple X, uh, which I really like for live having a 3 channel head. So I can have a kill switch, which is my clean channel, and then I can have like a little bit of a solo boost, be it either the effects button or the other channel. And yeah, I'm still using the triple X live, man. It needs tubes, but it's
Mhm.
just a great sounding amp, man. I love it. I had two of them. I ended up letting go of one. Someone had put EL34s in that one, and for me, I like EL34s. Don't get me wrong, but for me, in the PV Triple X, the 6L6 is much better. That my 6L6 head just blew that EL34 one out of the water. I mean, it wasn't even the same. Didn't even have the same amount of preamp gain. I don't know. There was something. It just it wasn't quite as powerful. You know how it's kind of that way with tube amps. Like you
Sure.
play through one and it's kind of bulimic, and then you play through the exact model and it's just insane.
Oh, my go-to for years was a Mesa dual rectifier, and it felt like every single year it's a different amp.
Yeah. Now for recording, I got this guy back here. Now this is what I've been using. I used it for my solos on the last Nile album I did, and I used it on all my pre-production, and I used it on Delirium Tremens. This is my stay-at-home studio amp. It's
Nice.
a 900 100 watt master volume, and I usually put this guy in front of it, and that's it.
Hell yeah, overdrives was going to be part of my next question. Hell yeah. What cabs are you tending to gravitate towards for recording?
A few years ago, probably should do a taste test again. But a few years ago, I did a taste test of every speaker in every cabinet that I own. I still own. I was up to 6 Marshall cabinets. I still own 4, and I have a 1960 vintage angled Marshall cabinet. I believe it either has vintage 30s or vintage 60s in it. I don't know. I didn't crack it open, but the top right speaker. No, yeah, no, maybe top right or top left. It's one I'd have to look at. It's buried in a closet underneath a bunch of blankets and shit. But it was just one of those speakers. It was like it just had more bite, and it had a flatter response than a lot of the others. A lot of my other live cabinets, I like to use the 75s because, well, I've caught 25 greenbacks and 30 vintage 30s. I've caught them on fire before. So
Yeah.
good old solo boost, get somebody bump a knob on accident. I hit that solo boost and start going up really high. The speakers are just like, ah, you know. And Yeah, I've definitely smoked a couple of those. So for live, I just use the tried and true 75 300-watt cabinet.
Gotcha. And any other kind of preferred effects like a wah, delay, anything like that?
No, there was a time where I was running a little bit of a mild delay on my solo side, but just for utilitarian sake and the sake of punk rock, I just don't use anything. Live, I have a Shure wireless setup, which is currently down right now. I didn't even use it on the last tour. And then it goes into the pedal. I like this one for recording, but for live, lately I've been using this guy, just a basic
Okay.
MXR overdrive. And the cool thing about this thing is great too. I mean, this is my favorite pedal ever. I think I picked this thing up used in like 2006 for like $20 or something. But this one, it when you engage it, it actually cuts some of the low end out of the guitar with a Marshall that's very low end heavy and kind of flubby with its gain structure. This cleans that up really quick. Um, you don't necessarily want that with a PV triple X. Like this one works better with the triple X because it doesn't
Gotcha.
cut as much low end out of the guitar signal
Okay.
when you run through it, and that's what I've noticed. Um, and that's pretty much it, man.
Hell yeah. What would you say is kind of your like tone inspiration? Like did it stem from maybe a Guitar Hero when you were younger and like, man, I want to sound like John Sykes or something. It's
Yeah, there was a lot of tones that I found pretty interesting. Anything from I really like the guitar tone on the first Flotsam and Jetsam record.
nice.
Um, it's something about the double picking that just kind of really just sounds really gnarly. But there's that. There's so many great guitar tones that Fate's Warning, Awaken the Guardian is another one that I really like, and of course all your usual suspects. I always thought, especially Ride the Lightning Metallica, that's a classic tone. It's beefy and it's clear, but it's got some cut and some bite to it. Um, that's that's a lot of people say that that was their favorite, guitar tone from those guys. Um, and yeah, so there's a lot. The early Metal Church albums have great guitar tones. I kind of like a little bit more of the thrashier rock vintage sound. Um, it's a lot more clear, in my opinion.
Hmm.
Like, back in the day, everybody was wanting to tune down the fucking J or whatever. And it just starts to get muddy. You start to lose note definition and clarity. Now that can be helped by, gauging up, getting thicker strings and stuff like that. That'll at least help with the tuning issues. But, for me, getting further than a half step away from standard, which is what a guitar is supposed to be built for. I guess if I was to ever do lower tunings, I would go ahead and go 7 string because I think those instruments are probably built a little bit more for that.
Sure.
And 7 string and maybe a little bit more of a baritone length or fan frets or something like that, something to keep all the intonation in check. But when it comes to just straight up thrashy goodness, you know, my favorite shit is a half step down on a 25 and a half scale length for 10 gauge. I mean, it just works and it's clear. And I've even had people walk up and be like, man, you guys' guitars are like really clear and stuff. And that's one of the first things I'm like, yeah, we're not tuned way the hell down. Trying to
Right.
play fast on floppy strings, that just doesn't work, you know?
I think you guys are off the top of my head one of the few bands I can think of that are hanging around half step down. I know like you guys and Cattle Decapitation. I know they've kind of hung around there. I think consistently the entire time. Um, I can't think of a whole lot of others.
I think Deicide was in that range. and they may still be kind of in that higher tuning. Um, of course, there's probably a good bit of black metal that's still around standard, within a half step or a
Sure.
full step. And of course, old school death, like that was
Oh
D
yeah.
standard. Think so. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I
And
say I,
even a lot of the guys that were in standard or even record their albums standard or a half step down, if they have an actual singer, especially since everybody's getting up in age, they usually tune like a full step down when they play live, so the guy can sing
oh yeah, true.
it.
What what would you say is your inspiration when it comes to riffing and songwriting? Any particular artist or groups, anything like that?
Not anything particular lately because I've been on this sort of retro kick lately where I've been listening to a lot of old Sabotage, been revisiting a lot of old records and stuff. They may be inspiring in a way, but not necessarily translating to the guitar. Um, I've just been kind of working on, just been kind of had my head into what we've been doing. You know what I mean? Got enough stuff. We've had this album ready to go pretty much for a long time, but of course, blah 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 pandemic, blah 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 this and that and the other thing. So really, I've just been concentrating on getting all that wrapped up. We're going to have a video for Sex, Lies, and DNA. It's currently being edited. And after that, I'm actually going to release one more single. And then that'll probably just be probably like a lyric video to go along with that or something. But after that, we're going to release the full album. And yeah, man, I mean, and as far as inspiration, it's really just been stuff that I hear in my head or stuff that I find on the guitar while I'm jamming around. I've been really getting into true crime these past few years. So lyrically, that's kind of been where my headspace has been, particularly on the last song. So I don't know, man. I'm just kind of all over the place.
Hey, that's not a bad place to be. Besides, it kind of keeps things fresh. I mean, if you're just listening to, I don't know, the same handful of death metal bands over and over again, it's gonna wind up kind of permeating through your own music. So, keep it fresh.
Yeah. And, and don't get me wrong, I love death metal, and there's definitely some key influential bands that came out, particularly in the early 90s, that we all love and adore. But I've always been more of a thrash punk kind of crossover guy. That's the shit that really is in my heart. You know what I mean? So with Narcotic Wasteland, there gets to be elements of all this stuff in there. And yeah, I grew up trying to kill myself on a skateboard listening to DRI, you know, and then realized that, you know, if you break your arm, you won't be able to play guitar for a month or whatever. So I let all that go. But yeah, don't get me wrong. I love death metal, but it's not 100% where my heart's at. I'm more of a old school. Nobody calls it speed metal anymore. We used to call it speed metal back in the day. You know what I mean? So, all the usual suspects. And yeah, I'm more of a thrashy punk kind of guy at the end of the day.
Name a couple of your go-to like thrash punk bands, like crossover, whatever. Obviously
Oh
DRI.
shit, DRI, crumb suckers. That's like the two big ones for me.
Hell yeah. I would say I love crumb suckers. I don't think anybody's mentioned them once on this show so far, so that's pretty killer.
I guess we were ready.
Yeah. You know what? I just realized Taylor Young, if you watch this, I had Taylor Young on the show and he has a crumb sucker sticker on one of his guitars. We didn't bring it up then.
Mm,
It's crazy. Let me see. So who
that's cool, man. Yeah, I really like riffs and a lot of the stuff, not all of it, but a lot of the stuff that I'm hearing lately just doesn't seem to have riffs or memorabilia of any kind. And maybe I'm just getting older or whatever, but that's just how I feel.
I I could see that. It's at least a lot of the newer bands I'm thinking of, there are riffs, but it's more about like this kind of this big, thick, kind of heavy groove style riff as opposed to something that's necessarily gonna grab you or stick in your head or something that's more scale or melody based, if that makes sense.
Right. Yeah, and some of that stuff I like. Like, don't get me wrong. There's some guys out there that are definitely doing that style some justice, but overall, I think a lot of the stuff is just lacking in the riff department, at least for me.
Sure. Who would you say is the first guitar player to inspire you and as far as picking up a guitar when you were younger?
Oh man, and that would have been that's probably would have been I really liked. I played a little bit of guitar even when I was really young, but I didn't get serious or pick it up until I was about 13. So by that time, I was getting into Judas Priest and Iron Maiden, and so there you go. There's four guitar players. You got Glenn and KK, and then you got Adrian and Dave Murray, and those were that. But it was also Metal Church. Um, that guitar playing was big, and actually the early Flotsam and Jetsam stuff was influential on me. That first Sanctuary record was very, very influential on me. So yeah, Lenny Routledge, he's a riffmeister from hell. And of course, I mentioned Sabotage, so like Chris Olivier, all of those guys had a hand in it. And I used to air guitar to Alex Lifeson stuff, but I could never figure his stuff out. He's got a lot of weird chords and stuff that he does, and a very unique style. And that's
Oh,
even if
sure.
you're a pretty seasoned player, trying to pick up the stuff that he does is just weird. It just doesn't feel right. It takes a little
Right.
bit of getting used to. You have to grow some connections in the brain to make that happen.
Absolutely. I have kind of noticed the parallels you kind of grew up with. Definitely the era of extremely guitar centric metal, which I love that stuff too. Um, versus I think a lot of other groups that are maybe kind of coming up and they're more excuse me, era where they're coming more like the heavy breakdowns and mosh parts and stuff like that, as opposed to something real technical.
Yeah, I mean, and there's a place for all that stuff. Uh, some of the some of the early death metal was kind of getting into the crunchy breakdowns and stuff, which was totally cool. Um, I remember hearing Effigy of the Forgotten for the first time and being like, "Well, that's a game changer! Holy shit!" you know, uh, I love the long sequencing of the riffs. That was really cool, and just the way they all turned back around. Very creative stuff, but also very, heavy, brutal. Like, you know, uh, that's what I like when I'm writing music or when I'm listening to music. Some of the three key things that I always look for in number one, is it going to make me? Is it going to give me the goosebumps? Is it going to make me cry? Is it going to make me want to punch somebody in the face? Like, it's got to have that, or it's just not extreme, in my opinion. That's the side of extreme that I like to try to stay on. And it doesn't necessarily take you down a road of playing 260 beats per minute. Sometimes you can be playing very slow and achieve those same sort of goals, which, it all has to have emotional content in order for it to really blow my dress up, if you will.
Fair enough. Um, as far as uh, let's talk goals. Goals for you personally, growing as a musician, and goals for the band and the trajectory of Narcotic Wasteland.
Well, basically, I'm gonna get this damn album out finally, and Definitely wanting to do some more shows and touring in 2024. We're gonna pretty much take the rest of the year off and kind of regroup, get the album done. Um, we do have one show coming up on the 28th, I believe, or is it 27th? 27th in Wichita, Kansas. We're just going to all fly in and blow the roof off the place and leave. So that'll be fun. And so, yeah, and that's basically it. And as far as me musically, I'm just going to continue to, write for this band. And I just see it, especially with my current lineup. I really can't be more proud and happy of the guys I'm playing with right now. They're just all super pro, super talented. They have great ideas, and I'm very, very looking forward to finally putting this album out and getting on with the next one because I already have two songs in the bag for the next one. And
Cool.
yeah, me and the drummer actually he flew down and he flew down earlier this year and we did an arrangement for a new song. And yeah, so since this album is already pretty much done, he's like, well, and especially with the way things are going, a lot more people are releasing singles and stuff like that. And I'm fine with that. I'm going to take what I can get at this point. So cool. That means that the song doesn't have to sit there for 2 freaking years waiting to get on an album. Cool. Just put the damn thing out. It doesn't
Right.
really matter anymore. Just do it. You
Yeah.
can still put out albums, but it's cool to, it's cool to just, not have to sit on something and you can just put it out. So I'm kind of enjoying the singles thing. Like I said, we're going to be putting out another one after this video's out for a while, and very, very much looking forward for everybody hearing that one as well. Um, and yeah, man, it's all just about musical growth and improving, getting better at the playing aspect of things, learning new things on the guitar, uh, reading more fucked up shit, and just staying on it, and dare I say, continue creating content. You know,
Yeah.
I'm totally fine with that. I'm ready. We've got especially between all of us, we have so many killer ideas that we don't even know we have yet. So I'm very much looking forward to the future, of the band.
That's which first off, great to hear that everything's on the, you know, moving in the right trajectory because we definitely want to hear more. Um, it's
Thank
it's
you.
it's pretty cool and refreshing to hear um, artists with tenure that are kind of adapting to kind of the way that a lot of people consume music these days, and a lot of people are just listening to singles and like I for whatever reason, me personally, I don't fully get it. I want the
Oh,
album, but I that's what people do. They'll just they'll put on a single. I know my wife, she'll just find a song or individual songs from a person and download them. I'm going through Apple Music. I'm like, what? Why don't you have the whole album? It's like I just want
yeah,
to put it on and play it. But
yeah,
hey, that's awesome. Also, did I hear you say reading fucked up shit?
yeah, yeah. I read about a lot of crime and stuff like that, and, drug use and death and all that cheerful stuff. And I don't know. I find a lot of correlations and all that stuff that people don't realize it. And this is going to sound horrible, but just going by some of the stuff that I read about crime and the criminal mind, I'm noticing a huge correlation with methamphetamines and rape. Like that seems to happen a lot. But one of the things that I kind of briefly touched on in the Sex Lies DNA song that we released not too long ago is the fact that when you think of someone, for instance, you think of someone like Jeffrey Dahmer. I mean, yeah, he was obviously really conflicted in a lot of ways and was just completely insane. But he was also a terrible alcoholic.
Yeah.
So Uh, there is a correlation there with even serial murderers and either alcohol or drug abuse.
Hmm.
And I just find it kind of fascinating that when it comes to the more like really horrible, heinous crimes like molestation or something like that, crystal meth pops up a lot. Like I don't know if it's actually freeing someone to make them think that that's a good idea somehow, or the the intention was, or the tendency was always there, and the meth just set them free to do it. So I sit around and think about shit like this probably too much, but the criminal mind has always kind of fascinated me. But the past 2 or 3 years, I've just been really digging in. And there was a song that we still play live, actually, that's on the debut album called "Coastal Killings," and it's about South Carolina's pretty much most prolific serial killer. His name's Donald Henry Gaskins. I wrote the song in a night after reading the book during the day. The book's called "The Final Truth." Check it out. He was on death row in South Carolina, and this guy was so evil. He actually got explosives snuck in, and he blew someone's head off while he was on death row. Just to give you like an insight on if
Jesus.
you're ever if you're ever interested in reading about any of this stuff,
Oh,
I highly
100%.
recommend that book.
Oh, absolutely. I'm already hooked on it. Actually, I'm gonna make a note here. What was his name again?
Donald Henry Gaskins or Pee Wee Gaskins. Yeah.
All right, interview on pause while I make this note, and we're back. Okay. Sorry. I
Yeah, no, definitely check the book out, man. I think you'll find it very interesting. And it gets so brutal actually about halfway through it. You don't even know if you want to continue reading it anymore because it's really disturbing. But that was pretty much, I think, the beginning of me starting writing songs about stuff like that was pretty much that song. And like I said, I read the book that day and then wrote the song that night in a single night. And it's still one of the most fun to play live and gets one of the best responses.
that's awesome. Uh yeah, no, I absolutely I love that kind of stuff. Me and my wife, we obviously we watch lots of, true crime stuff. We just watched that Netflix docu-series, How to Become a Cult Leader. Um,
Ooh, I'm gonna have to
and
check that out. Actually, me and the missus are gonna have to check that out.
it's pretty good. It's narrated by uh he was the he was the little guy from Game of Thrones.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
yeah, you know who I'm talking about. But
I think so. I never really watched that, but yeah.
he but yeah, every episode is touching on a different not serial killer, different cult leader. Obviously Charles Manson's in there. Um, uh, uh Jonestown,
Oh
and
yeah,
and
Jim
it's
Jones and David Koresh, maybe.
I don't I can't remember if they cover David Koresh, but they cover a couple I had never heard of before too. Like I can't remember how to pronounce his name. Sung Young Moon.
Oh yeah, shit, I forgot about that. I
Yeah,
definitely want to check that show out.
it's pretty good. It's not that long of a series, like 7, 8 episodes maybe. Each one different cult leader. But
That's great. They had something on Tubi that we got into watching too. That was had a thing on Koresh, had a thing on Manson and Jim Jones. We get in that zone. We don't have anything to do. We're just taking a day off. On the weekend. Oh yeah, it's on. We'll be watching all that. We just finished up Dexter actually a week or so ago, and even though that's more of a on the fictional side of things, like
yeah,
the first time I tried to watch it years and years ago, I wasn't as into true crime as I am now. So I enjoy the show much more, and it got a chance for me to show that to the missus and all that, and we would make food and have too many drinks and watch Dexter. And what a great show! And there's a Dexter New Blood that I'm going to check out. We're probably going to start watching that tonight,
yeah.
actually.
I need to give Dexter a second try. I watched it pretty consistently, and then after like the Trinity Killer, it the show started getting kind of weird, and I just kind of lost interest. But I don't know. Maybe I need to revisit it.
Yeah,
But
it gets really intense, especially right there at the end. It's really it's fucked.
hell yeah. Um, kind of. I have no good transition from that to any of my other questions, so I'm just gonna jump right to the next one.
That's fine. I go off on tangents.
No, it's perfectly fine. That's true crime, psychology, and neuroscience are all like interconnected interests of mine. So I love I love like learning about each of them from the lens of the other kind of thing. But kind of redirecting this.
That's
We did a question thread on the page, and one of honestly probably the only reoccurring question was about your departure with Nile. Um, you know, basically why. Would you care to elaborate and like kind of like where
sure.
you are
Yeah.
with those guys and all that?
Oh yeah, I love those guys like brothers. You know, I was in that band for 18 years, and I'm glad to still that they're out there still kicking some ass. Um, it was just time, and at the time, when I left, my personal life was not in the best of health, and touring constantly, as everybody knows, a band like Nile, we toured a lot, and I was just starting to get a little bit burned out, but also I was kind of wanting to do some different musical things, and it was just time. I mean, that usually when people ask me that question, my answer is just it was just time for me to do something else with my life, you know.
Sure.
And but yeah, I love those guys. I think they're finishing up their new album, and I know that they just got off. I think they were doing some European festivals. So yeah, I keep track of them, see what's up.
Hell yeah. Well, that's awesome to hear. I'm sure a lot of longtime Nile fans are going to be relieved to hear that there's no drama, no bad blood, nothing like that. That's cool. Awesome.
Nah, man, and life's just too short for that shit, anyways. You know, no matter what the situation would be with anybody, leaving a band or any place of business for that matter, leaving a job from a long time, sometimes just people need changes.
That's fair. And you know, being being a husband with a couple of kids and job, I totally get the whole burden of rigorous touring maybe not be ideal for the home life that you have in mind kind of thing. Is that pretty fair to say?
Well, sure, but like, my personal situation was just not very good at home. I mean, that's as far as I'll go with that. I was in a toxic relationship basically. So that was putting stress on me, and then, I was really burned out on being on tour, and I really just wanted to spend some time home with my kid. That next year he graduated high school. I needed to be around for that. There was just a lot of things going on, and a lot of them were positive, like being able to spend some extra time with my kid, all that stuff. And so that, a lot of those had to factor in my decision.
Cool. Well, I mean that's awesome, man. Family first, always, for sure. Well,
Yeah, man.
I think that satiates all the Nile fans out there. So we'll kind of steer this in a kind of more fun direction. Is there any gear out there that you have been eyeballing? Anything, whether it's something to solve an issue and it's something practical, or just like ooh shiny new toy kind of thing.
The answer is always yes. No. The one of the things that I really need to get on the stick and do some more research. Um, I really want to figure out. I know they have these like load boxes that you can get, And basically, you can line out of the back of any amp head, and it gives you a direct signal into your audio interface or your DAW. And it's like a cabinet simulator that's pretty legit.
Yeah.
And that way, because that thing does rumble in the closet. I have it isolated, but you can't always have a fire breathing Marshall. But I still want to get pre-production done, at any hour of the day or night I want to. So that's actually something I'm going to be doing for the studio. I need to figure out more about one of those Loadbox things so I can just, because I don't like this the plugins thing, man. I've just had really bad luck with it, with latency, and I'm kind of, I've just got the fucking, I guess, the Gen X thing with the technology. Sometimes I just get frustrated, and I just want to be able to hit record and go.
Right.
And don't get me wrong, I love working in a digital workstation. That's great. It just solves a lot of things. But just for the sake of being able to just be in my little zone in my headphones and not disturb anything or anybody while I'm working, it'd be nice to have like one of those things without sacrificing the feel of an actual amp, you
Oh
know.
yeah.
And that's one of the things I do want to get some new. I've had these old event studio monitors for a very long time. They're great. They're easy on the ears, all that stuff. I feel pretty confident when I'm making mixing choices that they're steering me in the right direction. But I do want something else. I'll probably go with some of the Yamaha ones, just to get a different perspective, just a different something to listen to. And as far as just shiny things, I'll probably just end up getting more Red Devils.
Oh yeah.
Just have a
Yeah.
freaking wall of them,
That's
Just load
awesome.
them up with JB Jazz and be done.
Whatever works.
Yeah,
Um,
man, that's just it. I feel like I love it when I get to that place with the guitar where you've got this guitar design or whatever, and that's what you're going to be playing for years, and you're not even going to look at it. And that's the way these two guys feel right now with the current setups. They play so sweet, and they sound really aggressive with the JB Jazz set. And the only upgrade I'm going to do for them is locking tuners, which they stay in tune really good even after driving down the road in a van for 800 miles or whatever. I take
right.
them out of the case, and they're pretty good. They're pretty close.
Hell yeah. It's really, really tempting me with a JS King V. They got some pretty sweet ones out there right now.
Yep,
Um,
and I just sold this one. I got to ship it, but I sold it to our our my good buddy Eric Schultek, and this is the Army Drab one.
that's the one I've been looking at.
Yeah, these are cool, man. You can see where I just turned that mat into a clear coat right there with the picking. But yeah, basically, I put these zebra pickups in it, and that actually looks really sweet in this guitar. The red ones come with the zebra pickups, and of course, I prefer just the solid black pickups in those. But man, they really look good on this Army Drag.
Hell yeah.
And like I said, I'm just getting. Oh, I'm over Floyd Rose. I just don't want that in my life anymore.
That's fair.
I, I don't use it. It's that this one's actually blocked. I've got one of those Trimble nose in the back.
Oh, okay. Hell yeah. But um as far as the load box goes, um probably something like a two notes captor or something maybe. I used to have one. And they even got the captor X now, which you can actually load IRs directly into the unit itself. The regular captor is a little bit cheaper, and it has a built-in either a guitar cab or bass cab, or you could just bypass it and just use it as a load box. And then you could just run, your IRs in your DAW or whatever, some kind of IR loader.
Yeah,
Uh, and which when I still had my Mesa, which I sold it, and I'm running a Kemper for now. and having a couple two preamps built for me just because I'm doing all studio shit these days. But yeah, the captors they work great. The built-in cab is like serviceable. You definitely want to run an IR loader, if you're recording. But other than that, they're like a freaking miracle if you if you run like 100 watt or louder, tube head. But
Yeah, because basically it's just going to go out of the effects loop, and you don't even have to kick off standby. You're
right,
basically just using the pre of the amp. And that's kind of what I want to get. I only use this Marshall back here when I'm doing serious recording, just to save on the old girl. You know what I mean?
sure,
For a lot of my pre-production, I just use a PV Windsor.
hell yeah,
That people are like, there you go. There's another cheap fire-breathing amp that actually has modifications you can do to it that'll make it pretty much just like a JCM 800.
I've seen a few people mod them and make them sound like some crazy high gain modded Marshall and stuff. I'm like, Jesus Christ! Like, of course, now they're kind of getting kind of scarce because I think more people are wising up to them.
Yep, I snagged one up last year, and a 412 cabinet that came with it, um, and I was very impressed with it. And to me, it didn't need any modifications. It just needed that pedal to hit that front end,
Hell yeah!
and it's noisy though because it's one channel.
Oh, gotcha.
So when you're not playing, it's just like, so it's terrible. So there's that problem. But that's really the only problem. As long as you're playing, it's great. I did a little bit of demo pre-production with it, and I was like, I got it really damn close to the Marshall actually. Uh, if you check out on my Insta, I did a couple of clips of me just doing a couple of solo things on there. That's the Windsor,
Okay.
and it's yeah, man, that thing works. And yeah, they are starting to get scarce. I'm getting tired of people making all the prices go up on stuff.
Oh, no. God.
Even a triple X, you could get a triple X for like 350, and now it's like 750. You know what I mean? This JCM 800 is like $800 all day long. Now they're like 1,500. This 900 back here. Yeah,
Right.
that's just crazy.
I my Mesa dual rectifier, I think I bought it for $600 like 11, 12 years ago and sold
That's
it.
a good deal.
And hell yeah. Even back then that was a good deal.
Oh yeah, that's worth 1,000 at least all day long.
I I almost feel bad what I sold it for. It wasn't the highest I've seen them go for. And I had one of the old 90s 2 channels. It was a Rev G. Um
Oh yeah.
I sold it for 2,200.
Woo!
Yeah,
I see why you sold
right. Which honestly, at the time, that was one of the lowest prices for any kind of rectifier at that time. So I was like, yeah, I don't want to be a complete scammer or a complete scumbag. But
Yeah, man, but they set up the rules, and
yeah,
that is a fire breathing amp from hell. And my good buddy of mine that I grew up with, he has a that he bought brand new back in the day. It's a dual rectifier combo amp
yeah,
with two vintage 30s in it and a trim over, but also freaking leather, dude. That thing is nice, and it's one of the best sounding Mesa Boogies I've ever heard in my life. He bought a brand new JCM 900 cabinet and had that open back on the top with that cabinet underneath. Man, that thing, it would cut through any mix, and it had lots of power. That thing was so sick.
hell yeah. I don't think I've ever rectifier combos. That's kind of a rarity.
It's very rare, and he got it. He ordered it new, and of course, he still got it. I think I saw a post where he retubed it a few years back or whatever, but I'm sure the thing's just perfect.
Oh yeah. Well, man, we'll kind of wrap this up the way I wrap up all these interviews, and What are your top four death metal bands and or albums?
Ah, okay. Bolt Thrower War Master,
Oh, nice.
Gorguts Considered Dead,
Okay.
Deicide Legion,
Hell yeah.
and I want to think about this other one because there's a lot that doesn't really cover a lot. What was another one that we really just played the dog shit out of back in the day? I mean, I guess it would have to be Effigy, Suffocation, the Effigy. It
Killer
would
fuck.
be, it would be like that or Napalm Death, Harmony, Corruption.
Oh,
It's like
hell yeah.
those were all like the big ones for me, but especially DSI Legion. Like that was some game changing shit.
Undoubtedly. That's a killer fucking list. Well, Dallas, I appreciate you taking the time, man. It's been a joy talking to you. And again, I think we've appeased a lot of very curious Nile fans and satiated a bunch of anxious Narcotic Wasteland fans waiting to hear the next bit of new music. Um, the floor is yours if there's anything you'd like to kind of plug real quick before we head out of here.
Uh, I'll end the show the way I normally end. Just thanks everyone for listening and supporting metal music, whether you like what I do or not. Um, Thank you, anyways. We're all in this shit together, and it's just very inspiring, and I'm very appreciative of people still. You know, metal is really strong. It's never went away. It's never been flavor of the week either, but it's always been there. And you're just some of the coolest damn people I've ever met. Cheers.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dallas. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Feel free
Thank
to check,
you.
yeah, please check out Narcotic Wasteland. And when this is up on YouTube, check out links down below. Thank you all. Have a good one.